Hi, Soul Family. So, this is going to be a bit of a longer video, I think, but I really felt inspired to share something a bit heavy, right? But one thing I don't see talked about often is, and at least in my own struggles, where I could have used guidance on is, what about when we're living quantumly, right? Or really putting our trust in metaphysics, meaning let's say we've been doing the work, we understand how reality works, right? We understand that our inner world will determine what transpires in the outer world, right? And we've come from a place where we've had to be forgiving. We've had to be gracious. We've had to be compassionate because for so long our survival depended on that. Our survival meaning if we grew up around people who it didn't feel safe to like share our emotions with and be genuine and authentic with, right? We learn to really create our own inner worlds and create sovereignty like from a really young age. This is how we become really empathetic, right? And we learn to manage other people's emotions and become stronger for others, right? And so as we grow up, we continue to erase the layers, right, of or peel back the layers and redefine our boundaries and redefine our our sovereignty in a way that's soft, not hard, right? Does that make sense? So I think if you can relate to this, then you've been through those experiences, right? Where where you've always been the quote unquote alchemizer, the transmuter, right, of experiences, of feelings. You've been the generational curse breaker, if you will, right? So when we get to a certain place in our spiritual journey where we recognize that, okay, I don't want to keep repeating certain loops, so I'm going to do revision. I'm going to revise the memories. I'm going to generate new feelings because I understand that a new reality exists for everything, right? So, for example, there's a reality where a certain trauma didn't happen to me. There is a reality where my family is supportive and my family is loving and kind, right? So, this is the angle I'm getting at, where a lot of teachers I see, they're like, just shift realities, choose whatever you want. But when we've been through so much and we've had to forgive so much, where I recognize the pull in myself, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. The pull of, okay, yes, there's forgiveness, but now, do I continue allowing someone to be in my life? And if I do, to what extent? If I allow this person to be in my life, am I not acting in accordance with my higher self, my highest self? Am I not acting in accordance with quantum physics? If I know that a reality exists where this person, like that, something never happened to me, right? There is a struggle of, am I contradicting the law of the universe itself? And I just wanted to share some things that I've had to walk away from, right? So mentally, I've had to rewrite a lot of stories, things around what can be I say perceived as, but rape, assault, sexually, just gang stalking, harassment, uh, threatening of violence, right? Being threatened for my life. So I had been for a long time in a state of running, a perpetual state of fleeing. And I recognized at some point that it started when I was like 18, when I didn't feel safe in my own home, and things would happen and I'd tell my mom and no one would believe me, right? And so to this day, I've been called a liar, right? I've been called, this didn't happen, you're crazy, right? So, throughout the years, like, I don't say that to take pity or anything on me. I'm just sharing because I know someone can relate to this. So it's taken a lot of work to not identify with these things. That's why a lot of times when I retell stories, I'll say I perceived as rape, right? Perceived as this. Because I no longer identify with those things, right? And that's the struggle sometimes when we're walking away from people in our life. We're saying, am I still identifying with this? Is that why I'm walking away? And I think that's a really good question to ask ourselves if we don't want to repeat the loops of trauma or experiences or similar people in our life, right? Am I walking away as an identity of this, thinking that it really happened? Because here's another deeper truth, and this is something I have to reckon with often, is the truth that when we understand how reality works and what everything really is, nothing actually happens. The only thing that happens are the meaning we give to it, okay? And this can be really difficult to take for our egos, especially when we've experienced such atrocities, right? So it's incredibly humbling. It's incredibly humbling, and it requires the spirit to be the strongest vibration. It really requires complete death of the self as we know it in the ego sense, right? So I've not been in contact with my family, and I've had to sit with myself often and just connect with myself and ask, am I attaching them to what happened? Am I living as a victim and identifying still as things of the past? Or have I truly released them? Have I truly rewritten them? And if I've truly rewritten them, can I still fully confidently say I am moving on away from this? Not because of anything you did, but simply because I feel that is what my higher self is telling me to do. Because I'm going with the feeling of expansion, not with contraction. And so now I'm moving towards something new, because not because of anything you did, but just because I am. Just because I want to. So when we can really recognize that there is no more reason for me walking away, there's no reason. I'm just doing it because intuitively it feels best. When you can really understand that you're free from narratives and free from any attachments to things that were done, that's the most important place to be when we're going through releasing and keeping no record of wrong, as the Bible says, keeping no record of wrong, because for every record of wrong we keep, we're perpetuating that in our reality. So, there is no linear time. There's only now. There always has ever been now. And if I am wealthy, I am joyful, I am joy itself. I am completely healed. I am fullness in every sense of the word. I'm talking about the I am consciousness, right? I'm not living in the human character. So if I am the I am consciousness, why would I keep identifying as the human character who went through this, went through that, right? It doesn't make sense. You can't live in both realms. You have to choose one. So to choose the higher realm of the I am consciousness, and to still walk away and choose that I am, I think we just have to really sit with ourselves and ask and be sure that we're choosing the I am consciousness. We're not choosing to interact differently or removing ourselves from people because of stories that keep us tied to a victimized human character, right? No, we're moving away from it as the I am, right? As an embodiment of our highest selves, knowing fully well that we've released any stories that we resonated with in the past, right? And so this is something that I really do sit deeply with, because I also know that this is preparation for death. Our walk in this journey and spiritually awakening and walking in the law of assumption and embodiment, trusting in our consciousness more than our physical senses, is preparation for death. And from my personal experiences, I don't want to create a loop where I'm brought back to the earth, right? I want to be free of any attachment to this world, any illusion. So I do take it really seriously, and I go as deep as possible to make sure I'm truly disconnected and detached from any narrative that the human ego perpetuates. Does that make sense? And on the flip side, that's why we also have to look at the idea of wealth and everything, because we can still be attached to the human character, even in a positive way, but we're still being attached to the human character. So that's again why detachment with embodiment is so important. As we're embodying new states of being, knowing that we actually don't need anything because there is no human character, there's only consciousness. So this is really, it's a deeper video than I normally do, but it's just bringing questions to yourself that I've had to ask myself. So I wanted to ask you and bring these things to you. And now I'll just share after these questions what I've had to do to be really, really truthful to myself is I can still recognize a density, right? I still recognize a density in me that's possibly tied to things that have happened, right? And so every day I take time to place myself in a new reality where those things never happened. And I imagine, I place myself in that situation and I imagine it going differently. Instead of that person taking a certain action towards me, I imagine that same person doing something different, doing something that would reinforce a vibration of safety, peace, right? And so as I'm doing that, it strengthens the vibrational reality of always being supported, right? Of never having to live that trauma, okay? So it's a very high level practice. It requires you to totally get out of your ego and feel simultaneously you're going to hold the pain you feel, you're going to hold the memory, and at the same time hold the newness right next to it. So you're rewriting the memory, or not really rewriting, you're just choosing the new reality that you see in your mind, right? That you feel, that you know is there, because everything exists at once. So I just wanted to share that exercise with you. That's something I've been doing and practicing, because what I envision is, what I really feel in spirit is, the spiritual truth I feel is, because I am consciousness and all realities exist at once, and I just choose, I feel that when am fully in the reality of that past never happened, this person didn't actually do that to me, I can be around those people again when I fully embody it, right? But what I've come to is to trust the discernment of my spirit too, right? And so discernment tells us things from the higher self, right? Not reaction to trauma. I'm not talking about instinct reaction to trauma. I'm talking about discernment, where we sense what is the best things to do for ourselves, right? And so my discernment has said to just really focus on myself, to distance myself as much as possible from everyone and do the spiritual work, and to not extend my energy to certain people anymore, but rather to just keep focusing on the inner work, keep doing the spiritual work, and trust that in time everything, to trust that it's how do I say, to trust that the fulfillments of all is already there, like, because I don't need anyone from anyone anything anymore. I don't need anything from anyone anymore. I don't need my mom to be a certain way. I don't need my family to be a certain way. But often what we may have confused that with is almost being unwise and unselective with our energy, where we're still well, I'm whole, I'm sovereign, so I'm just going to be around this person, right? Anyway, because I know I'm whole and sovereign and they can't affect me. And I did that for a time, and what I found was I wasn't listening to the discernment of my spirit. That was another side of the ego, just trying to override the discernment. Does that make sense? I know this is a lot, but I say this because if you're someone like me who's super intuitive and you've been through so much and you have such a big heart, it's okay to walk away when you're doing it whole. It's not gonna intervene. It's not gonna interfere with your field, with your loops. It's gonna create a new loop of people rising to meet you because you rose to meet yourself. You rose to meet your highest self. So as long as you keep doing the work, choosing that reality that you know is there for you, that has always been there for you, regardless of what you've experienced in the past. And then when you choose that reality, you will still feel the depth of pain, the depth of attachment to these events. And in its own time, it will rise and fall away from you as you continue rising within your highest self. I hope this was helpful. Let me know how it resonated with you in the comments if it did. I'll see you next time.